All right, so on our setup, there's specific instructions on how to do the setup, but what I wanted to show you first, well, first I'll do the setup. I'm not going to change anything because once you change it, it's going to really erase everything I've already done. And also after you get everything running good and you're driving it around, the ECU does do some self-tuning / what they call learning. And you can see if I go back to the live data screen, when you get up to a certain coolant temperature and you're riding around, this little learning light will light up, and that's just the ECU kind of learning how the car is running, you know, at the operating temperatures and idle speeds and RPMs that you're driving around at. But if I go back to the setup, in the setup, it's pretty simple. And this is one of the things that again, a lot of people don't like the fast EFI kit, but for me, this was going to be relatively easy for me to do because I'm not an experienced tuner. But you hit the green arrows, and if I hit confirm, it will erase everything I did and it'll walk me back through the settings. I don't want to go through each of them right now, but essentially what it does is, I'm going to go to advanced now, is it goes through each of these and lets you set everything up. So I think one of the first things it does is it has you do engine parameters. And I can go in and change each of these individually after doing the setup, but that first time around, you do have to do the setup wizard. But if I go into advanced, I'm going to show you a little bit what it looks like. So it'll go through engine parameters first. You're going to put the number of cylinders in. You're going to put your engine cubic inches, the idle speed you want, and the rev limit for the max engine RPM. If you make any adjustments in here, the manual says that every time you hit the green button, it saves it. So if you make an adjustment, hit the red button, it's not going to save the adjustment you made. Throttle body and injector, Z-Car recommends that you select other because it's not a true multi-port injection system, and none of these others fit. So selecting other, that's what I've got it set on. Fuel pressure, this system does not monitor your fuel pressure, but you do have to put your fuel pressure in there. So, you know, the Z, or at least for the 78, I think most all the Zs, they run at a 36 PSI. So I've got 36 PI as the base fuel pressure. And then my enrichment fuel, Z-Car Depot recommends a negative number in the Excel fuel. So I set mine to -6. So far that's worked out for me. Cranking fuel, -2. What that does is it gives it a little more fuel than what the system normally would by itself. Wanted a little more at cranking because I don't have the cold start valve on there. So that's why I've got that set at -2. And then fan control, I'm not using a fan control, so we're not gonna do anything with that one. AFR targets, it comes preset with AFR targets. You could change them if you needed to, but that's not part of the setup wizard. But the setup wizard goes through engine parameters, your throttle body and injector, your fuel pressure, your enrichment fuel, then TPS calibration. This is pretty important. This helps the TPS sensor that you mount to the side of the throttle body. It helps that sensor know when the car is at idle, so your foot is off the gas, and then where full throttle is. So if I was to hit calibrate right now, it would be calibrating where the not pushing the fuel pedal, gas pedal is, and it needs to be at 0.1, and that is in the sheet that Z-Car Depot gives you. That's the recommended voltage for the TPS voltage. It needs to be at 0.1, and there's a way to adjust that on the TPS sensor that mounts to the throttle body. There's two little screws. You put it on throttle body, throw it on the car, but then when you're doing your adjustment, you'll loosen those screws, and you'll need to have this screen down by you. So that's why it's important to have, see, I've got a little bit of length on here. I can actually pull it out of the side of the dash over here, but I can take it around to the front with me. I can adjust, I'll take that TPS sensor, and it's usually an adjustment backwards, so kind of going towards the front of the car, counterclockwise, and you'll see this voltage change. You need to get it to 0.1. Then you'll press calibrate, and then it'll tell you to push and you have to do this when it's not started. Notice it says when engine's not running. Then it'll have you push the gas pedal all the way down. You'll hit calibrate again, you'll hit green, and that'll save it. That's part of the setup wizard. IAC calibration, you can see right now it's not in the green because the car is not running. But once you get everything set up, you start the car, you let it run, then you're gonna make an adjustment to the engine idle. There's an idle screw on the very top of the throttle body, and that is where you'll make an adjustment to get this white bar into the green. Like I already showed, AFR targets, warning indicator. This is where you can set your shift light RPM trigger range. It'll throw an error code if you're going over RPM, and that's just, you know, to protect the engine if you want to do that. Warning indicator. Oh, we already did that one, sorry. Select tack RPM, so you can select either 6,000 or 9,000 RPM tack, and you can just see it just has different like dial digits there, and I use the 6,000 one. And then that will go back to startup screen. If I wanted to go the startup screen, I can select which one I want and I can configure them. That's another cool thing about this live data, is you can configure these 4 screens to different readings. I like to keep it on the number 4 because I like to see my air fuel ratios, like to know my manifold pressure is good, my TPS is good, and my coolant is good. But again, there's different kind of, I guess, configurations. If you like it, see how that one is on, the numbers are on the left. This one, the numbers are on the right. Number 1 got a little bit of both. This one's kind of cool too, but it doesn't show that AFR meter like I like. And then sometimes I like to drive around with the whole master on so I can just see all the readings. And that's really the setup on the AFR. I'm going to turn the car off, and as soon as I turn the key off, that handheld screen goes off. So to get that screen to come on, I have to key on. So I don't know if you can hear the clicks. And as soon as I get it clicked to key on, now I can see my screen and the fuel pump's running. So because I did 12 volt key on, the key is on, my screen is on, the system is on, my fuel pump is running. So that's the setup of the EFI system. Last thing I think I'll show you, and I'm going to take the camera around to show you, when I mentioned the IAC adjustment, that there is a throttle body adjustment screw that you'll turn back and forth to get it into the green. That's this screw right here. And if it's not all gummed up and corroded, you should be able to spin it back and forth with your hand. And that's it. Any questions, hit me up in the comments, and I'll try to answer them. I'm not an expert backyard tinker, got a good bit of mechanical sense, but I couldn't rebuild an engine if you needed me to rebuild an engine, but this was a relatively easy plug and play system. I love it so far. If I have any issues with it, I'll definitely post another video about those. Thanks all for watching.